आज ही डाउटनेट ऐप डाउनलोड करें। डाउटनेट पर होगा अब आपके सभी मैथ्स, केमिस्ट्री, फिजिक्स और बायोलॉजी डाउट्स का सफाया। बस अपने क्वेश्चन की फोटो खींचो, उसे क्रॉप करो और तुरंत वीडियो सोल्यूशन पाओ। डाउनलोड नाउ।
Hello students, so our question is explain menstrual cycle in human females. How can the scientific understanding of the menstrual cycle of human female help us a contraceptive measure? So here we are talking about this menstrual cycle in the female. So normally the menstrual cycle is of 28 days. This is a average we can say days of menstrual cycle, in which we divide these 28 days into two parts. The first is the 14 days and the second 14 days. These first 14 days are called the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle. And the second 14 days will be called the ovulatory phase of the menstrual cycle. So as the name suggests, in follicular phase, the development of ovum will take place. The development of ovum will take place, and in ovulatory phase, the ovum comes out in the ovary, comes out from the ovary, and it basically resides in the fallopian tube for fertilization. It waits in the fallopian tube, and when there is no fertilization, it will lead to the menstruation. The eggs needs to go out of the, or we can say it must be thrown out of the body. It must be thrown out of the body because it has toxic substance which basically we can say kills the cells around the uterus and the fallopian tube or the reproductive tract of the female. So these eggs, or we can say ovum, must be thrown out of the body, and this throwing out of the eggs we can say is called the menstruation. This menstruation is basically depend upon two important hormones. Those are called gonadotropins, and these are FSH and LH. The FSH is a follicular stimulating hormone, and the LH is a luteinizing hormone, and these both hormones are released by the pituitary in order to control the we can say menstrual cycle. So as we know, this FSH basically stimulate the follicular phase, whereas this LH stimulate the ovulatory phase. This LH will basically increase the secretion of progesterone. This will increase the secretion of progesterone as well as estrogen, which will lead to the changes in the uterus, as well as it will lead in the changes in the ovary. Because after the egg will come out from the ovary, there is this remaining part of the ovum. There is this remaining part of the ovum that is left, which is called corpus luteum, and the progesterone secretion is totally dependent upon this corpus luteum because it needs to be degraded and degenerated so that the amount of progesterone is basically high in those periods. And the question is asking about how this whole understanding of menstrual cycle will help us to understand the contraceptive measures. So first of all, if we talk about the natural ways of contraceptions, like coitus interruptus, this is a natural method. Like if we talk about the lactational amenorrhea, this is another we can say natural method of contraception. And if we talk about the periodic abstinence, these are the ways of natural method of contraception. So when we talk about the periodic abstinence, this is totally dependent upon this menstrual cycle, in which if the couple avoid the coitus or the sex during these 10 to 17 days of the menstrual cycle, it won't lead to the pregnancy, or we can say it is a very good contraceptive measures, but it is not very much effective because menstrual cycle days are very variable. They are not fixed, but we can say somehow we can understand this or utilize this contraceptive measure. As well as this lactational amenorrhea is also involved for this we can say menstrual cycle, because this lactational amenorrhea is basically occurs after the development or after the childbirth. We can say when the child comes out from the women's body, there is this intense lactational period of about 6 months in which the mother secretes the milk. And this amenorrhea means is basically the absence of menstruation because the higher amount of prolactin is present. This will lead to the lesser secretion or inhibition of secretion of gonadotropins, that is FSH and LH. So there will be no proper menstruation. And coitus interruptus is not much related to the contraceptive measures or related to the menstrual cycle. But here, these two methods are related to the menstrual cycle. So it will help us to understand how we can utilize these methods as a contraceptive measure. Thank
क्लास 6 से 12 से लेके नीट IIT जेई मेंस और एडवांस के लेवल तक 10 मिलियन से ज़्यादा स्टूडेंट्स का भरोसा। आज ही डाउनलोड करें डाउटनेट ऐप या व्हाट्सएप कीजिए अपने डाउट्स 8400 400 400 पर।